a land filled with all the luxuries that a man may possess. The city of Babylon was known to be one of the richest places in ancient times. Taking inspiration from the lives and lifestyle of people who lived in the city, George Clason takes us on a journey where we find out how to improve our financial lifestyle. Although it originated almost a millennium ago, the book still holds secrets that are as relevant as ever before. The book dispenses financial advice through a collection of parables set in ancient Babylon. The story of its inception has to do with a set of informative leaflets distributed by banks and insurance brokers. These leaflets were later collected and bound together and published in the form of a book in 1926. Through the course of this episode, we will learn about how Clason uses the concept of parables throughout this book, a portal which he uses to impart useful financial lessons. These parables are sprinkled throughout the book in separate chapters, each one of them explaining to us a different facet of wealth management. There are other major sections of the book that tell us not just acquiring wealth, but also how to save it and sustain it. Some of the most compelling sections of the book involve Clason explaining several complex theories in a straightforward manner. As you will realize as you go along this episode, the book gives a feeling of an older gent or a grandfather gathering his wards around the fireplace and telling them stories that hold their interest throughout. You will really understand how Clason uses the age-old appeal of storytelling to pass on his sagely advice. It is really a testament to his skill that these tips and guidelines held true 100 years ago and still do to this day. Without further ado, let us hop into this wonderful world Clason has created for us. You're listening to a review of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, written by American author George Samuel Clason. The book was originally published in 1926 and later distributed by Penguin Books. Do you remember the first story that you ever read or heard in your life? Was it in one of those colorful books which told fables of the crow and the deep pot of water? Or did you hear it from your parents on one of those hot, muggy nights when you just could not get yourself to sleep? Stories have always been around us. We get to tell some and we get to hear some. When you tell a story, it sparks a connection. This is the way humans have communicated since the beginning of time, by telling stories. They have been told since even before humans learned to read and write. These stories have passed on through generations. Some of them fill up history books, some are integral to culture, and some are inherently embedded in our family values. As human beings, we are automatically drawn to stories because we see ourselves reflected in them. They teach us, make us empathize with the world, and most importantly, inspire us. This significance that we attach with storytelling has been wonderfully portrayed in the book that we are going to talk about today, The Richest Man in Babylon. The book, first published in 1926, has attempted to dispense financial advice and guidance with the help of stories and parables set in the ancient city of Babylon. These parables are almost 4,000 years old, and Clason has used them to impart essential lessons relating to money and finance. Its continued popularity has astounded people around the world, which speaks to the clarity and relevance that Clason's writing has been able to achieve, almost 100 years since its inception. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the book a bit. To explain his parables in a concise way, Klassen has used a fictional character named Arkat, who is the protagonist of the multiple stories that have been sprinkled throughout the book. Arkat is the titular richest man in Babylon. His journey from rags to riches serves as an example of simple but important lessons about personal finance, about the creation and preservation of wealth for individuals. Arkat learnt it the hard way, but he had with him a deep desire to achieve success and financial security that would allow him to lead a fulfilling life. There are two major sections in the book that Klassen has used to impart his advice through. Let's look at the first of those, which is named The 7 Cures for a Lean Purse. In this part of the book, Klassen has listed down 7 tips on not just earning wealth, but also sustaining it in the long run. The first of these cures is start thy purse to fattening. The first tip is to set aside 10% of your income for yourself as soon as you are paid. You need to do this before you spend any money. You can use the other 90% to pay bills and other expenses. But that 10% is specifically for you to save and invest. This isn't money to buy things such as a new phone or to upgrade your wardrobe, but it's the money that you need to set aside to invest and grow. 10% may seem small to some, but gradually you will see that you have accumulated a good enough amount. Cure number 2 is control thy expenditures. Spend less than you earn. When one has surplus money, it's tempting to splurge and buy fancy things. Refrain from doing this. Make sure to live within your means and only take on necessary expenses. Arkat makes a great point when he says that your expenses will always grow equal to your income if you don't protest. Stop and consider what you're spending your money on and minimize the unnecessary expenses. Cure number 3 is make thy gold multiply. Invest and make money work for you. Just saving money and not foolishly spending money by curbing your expenses is not enough to become wealthy. One also has to invest it. Every cent of your savings should be invested. When you receive returns on the money that you invested, you should be investing these returns as well. If you do this, your wealth will slowly build. To know more about the rest of these 7 cures, pick up the book and submit yourself to Mr. Klassen's guidance. The other interesting section of the book that Klassen has used to dispense his advice is called The 5 Laws of Gold. This part of the book is mainly concerned with the attainment of money and the practices that we can inculcate in ourselves to do it more and to do it in a better way. Klassen uses the alluring concept of gold and tells us the following tips. The first of which is, gold clings to the people who invest their gold with wise people. Leverage the advice of financial experts if you need to when investing your money for more security. No one is a born financial expert. It takes time, experience, and years of learning. That's why you should always find someone you can trust when it comes to financial help. The second law that Klassen states is, gold slips away from people who invest in unfamiliar purposes. Don't rush headlong into an investment you know nothing about. It's just asking for trouble. And the third law in this list is, gold flees from people who force gold into impossible earnings. Don't fall for get-rich-quick schemes or scams. This will only end in grief. To know the other laws of gold in the list, you have to read the book. Only then would you be able to grasp its complete impact. Now, let us explore some of the parables and teachings that Klassen has written in the book, which will help us in getting to know the intricacies of earning and saving wealth. The most important of all in the list of tips is, getting rich is about hunger, the single-minded passion for wealth. One of the first stories in the book tells us of Arkat's apprenticeship with a rich man that taught him about the value of money. how to earn, save, and multiply. Arkat relates the story of meeting his mentor. He was a young man who had been working long hours for little money. One day, a well-known moneylender named Algamish came to him and asked him to complete a very difficult assignment in 2 days. Though the task was almost impossible, Arkat took it on and worked tirelessly. But he wasn't able to complete it. When Algamish came back, Arkat gathered his courage, and even though he knew he was out of line, he fearlessly made a challenge to the moneylender. He dared to ask him for the secret of his wealth in exchange to let him work for just one more night and complete it. The task was still quite unattainable. But seeing the courage of this young scribe, Algamish the moneylender told him that he had a bargain. If the scribe would be able to complete the task before sunrise, then he would tell him everything he knew about becoming rich. Sure enough, Arkat worked all night without a wink of sleep, and the next morning he had completed the task. So it was then that Arkat convinced his mentor Algamish to teach him about wealth acquisition and how he could become like him. The story sets up a very basic but critical tenet of wealth acquisition. What Arkat showed was a single-minded attitude towards his goal. It was this deep desire that won the moneylender over. He didn't simply talk about being rich, he actually worked hard for it. And he showed that he had the strength of character to back it up. Arkat also showed great courage, a fearless, risk-taking attitude that would take you far in your personal pursuit of prosperity and a leisurely existence. The story has a definitive lesson. It is not only hard work that sets us on the path to glory. One needs an air of fearlessness and clearly stating what one desires from the universe. This is the first lesson that this book teaches us, and this attitude actually marks all the subsequent lessons that are imparted in this book. The second lesson in the list is pay yourself first. Spend less than you make, save and invest the difference. Algamish explains another very simple sounding rule, but over time, we realize how ingenious it is. He tells Arkat, a part of all I earned was mine to keep. Arkat is somewhat confused, stressing that this is already true. His salary is his own. He uses it for his own basic needs and necessities. He lists what he does with his salary, and Algamish points out that nothing is actually his to keep. He is a slave to the person who gives him food, who dresses him, and for all his other needs and desires. He admonishes him and tells him about one simple rule. Keep no less than 1/10 of what you make for yourself, keep it aside, and then spend it on other things. He goes away for a year, but Arkat thinks deeply about what he has been taught and tries it out in a sustained manner. He is overjoyed by the end of it, because slowly and surely, the little amounts of money that he has been saving become somewhat significant. You should always be looking to save money when you can. Klassen recommends saving at least 10% of your earnings. This money might just pay off your debt, but it is still growing your wealth. If you are in debt, you should live on 70% of what you earn. Save 10% for yourself and use the remaining 20% to repay your debts. You should set this aside before you spend any other money. You have to repeat this practice again and again in order to let it become natural and make it a habit. The next lesson in this list is men of action are favored by the goddess of luck. Arkat proposes that luck is about making the most of the opportunity that knocks at your door. By taking advantage of opportunities without hesitation, we can create our own good luck. For most of us, the number one thing standing in our way is procrastination. You have to be ready to act promptly and decisively. In the parable that Klassen has used here, he sets up the scene at a social gathering organized by Arkat. A friend of his relates a story of a livestock trader who wanted to buy a huge flock of sheep at a low price. It was the perfect opportunity, and the seller wanted to complete the trade the same night as he had to return home to his wife who was sick. The trader initially jumped at the opportunity because it was a great bargain, having found out that he was to buy 900 sheep. The livestock trader and his workers set out to count the sheep. This proved to be an impossible task at night in the darkness, and he decided to refuse the deal. The seller insisted on further lowering the price and promised to leave one of his trusted workers with the flock, but he could not convince the trader. Instead of closing on the deal right away, he insisted on waiting until morning so he could better inspect the flock. When morning came, other livestock traders heard of the deal and made much higher offers, causing him to miss out on the deal of a lifetime. The deal was made to another trader before he could even wake up properly, for 4 times the price promised to him the previous night. What we learn from this parable is that good luck flees from procrastination. To attract good luck, you need to take full advantage of opportunities. It's not something you can just wait to happen. People who work hard, keep their eyes open, who are always on their feet, and don't procrastinate are the ones who usually turn out to be lucky. For me, the best part of this book was when I came across a treasure trove of great quotes. These quotes serve as a wonderful passage through which we can continue to understand and analyze this book better. The use of parables has meant that there are some great lines sprinkled throughout the book. Let us go through some of the best ones. The first one reads, "Desires must be simple and definite. They defeat their own purpose should they be too many, too confusing, or beyond a man's training to accomplish." Here's another quote. "A part of all I earn is mine to keep. Say it in the morning when you first arise. Say it at noon. Say it at night. Say it each hour of every day. Say it to yourself until the words stand out like letters of fire across the sky." And my favorite of the lot, learning was of 2 kinds. The one being the things we learned and knew, and the other being the training that taught us how to find out what we did not know. The Richest Man in Babylon was written by George Clason, an American author born in the year 1874. He began his career as a businessman, which he was forced to close down during the Great Depression. Later in life, Clason began writing a series of informational pamphlets about using money in a resourceful way and how to achieve financial success. He started writing these pamphlets in 1926 using parables that were set in the ancient city of Babylon. Banks and insurance companies began to distribute these parables, and the most famous ones were compiled into the book, which came to be known as The Richest Man in Babylon, The Success Secrets of the Ancients. This book is often referred to as a classic of personal financial advice and appears in multiple modern recommended reading lists on finance and wealth management. This has kept the book in print almost a century later with over 2 million copies sold. Now, let me tell you about how Mr. Clason came up with the idea for the book and put it into implementation. In the late 1920s, writer and entrepreneur Clason created a series of simple parables about what he called the financial secrets of the ancients. He compiled these tales, set in Babylon some several centuries ago, into an entertaining yet instructive book on becoming wealthy. Each universal parable that Clason has mentioned in this book teaches invaluable lessons about how to go about gaining wealth, attaining it, nurturing it, protecting it, and sustaining it. These stories also convey worthwhile lessons not just about money and finance, but also about life itself. The book focuses on the one common thing that has had our passion and attention since the beginning of time, a practice that is passed down generation to generation, that is, how to make money. The book, through a series of parables, tells us the secret of financial success through personal growth. Even though this book was published back in 1926 and based on lessons that are almost a century old, it's still relevant today for people who want to take control of their finances. So great were the teachings of this book that in the 1930s, during the worst of the Great Depression, and for decades after, readers have embraced Classen's engrossing page-turner of a book. As Classen explains at the beginning of the book, Babylon had one of the richest societies in the world. The impregnable walls surrounding the city were 320 feet tall, keeping citizens protected from pillaging armies. This allowed them to grow their wealth in peace and prosperity. While the tales Classen weaves in this book are fictional, the lessons behind them are visceral and impactful. If you take the advice to heart, this book may just change your life. It is really remarkable how a book published almost a generation ago has been able to maintain its popularity through the years. People all over the world have talked about how they have managed to integrate the teachings provided in this book in their day-to-day lives and how it has helped them improve their financial lifestyle. Let me read out some reviews of this book that may persuade you to seek it out. One review reads, "This is a book that I should have read in my early 20s, not in my mid-40s. Now whenever my payday approaches, I make sure that I've paid myself promptly as the book suggests. It is easy to read, laid out in short stories, and has moral lessons at the end of it to drive home its points. I will be definitely recommending this book to my children in the future. A book that is highly recommended for hard workers like me, but with lean purses." The second review says, "The Richest Man in Babylon takes a very unique approach. It puts the basic concepts of handling money and puts them in a story format whose principles are extremely easy to comprehend for a layman. Due to its simplicity, the concepts are very memorable and can be easily recalled a long time after you've read the book. And one of the best reviews of the lot goes, this book confirmed for me things I already knew and I was doing. For example, saving at least 10% of my income and investing it in order for the cash to multiply itself over time. The thing I loved most about this book was the language and the stories within it. I found this book incredibly hypnotic, in that I was so drawn in by the story and genuinely didn't want to stop reading it. It really makes you ask the all-important question: how do I apply this knowledge in my own life? Love this book, and it has been a great addition to my library.
If your journey feels stuck, you're not alone. We've got you. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more curious minds discover this content. Subscribe to Being and Beyond and join a growing community that thrives on knowledge, perspective, and personal growth. And if this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Your support fuels our passion and pushes us to create better content. Welcome to Being and Beyond.